is called color.adobe.com. You do have to sign up for it. Sorry, it generally shows up like this. I was obviously playing with it earlier. You have to sign up. You have to go in this app and sign up with your Adobe login name and password. And then you are given this option to choose a set of colors. And you can choose it based on whatever you want here, right? You can say, oh, I'm going to go through these. By the way, all these will have a lot of meanings when you took your color theory class. In Cal Poly, we have, and I believe it's next quarter, a color theory class in which you get to see everything you can about color. In fact, it's a whole 10 weeks on colors. So I'm not going to go into detail of what everything is because this class there's so much else we got to cover. But you can, decide, okay, I'm going to base it on monochromatic. Now, the word monochromatic comes from Greek. Mono means one, chrome means color. So you have one color. Let's say one hue. When we talk about color, you have to think hue, H-U-E. And you can decide which color it is. Like in this case, it's purple. But you might say, hey, look, my favorite is red. I'm going to go with red. And I want a whole color palette based on red or yellow or whatever you want it to be. But you also can decide you actually want a triad. Triad also comes from, by the way, Greek, and has to do with three, right? Triad is pretty clear, you all know. And again, you can kind of move these things around to decide which color you want. Why does it matter? Because once you choose a palette, you can hit save, and it will go in your library that is up here. I don't particularly like this one, so I'm not going to do that. But I'm going to go look for another one that I might like. Actually, this one is pretty cool. I like this one. So I'm going to hit save right now. So that's one way you can make colors. Another way to make colors is to go under Explore, right here under Explore. And in Explore, you will see that you have a lot of options. The first one that comes out is all these gorgeous blue. Now notice that some of these palettes are actually derived from images. And I'll show you how to do that. It means every time you see an image, it's because that palette was derived from that image. Now, if you're tired of blues and purples and you want to get to something more like orangey, hit next and you will get another whole page full of beautiful colors. Let me actually download one of these. Let's go with this one. Oh, by the way, if you click on here, it will download as a JPEG. And what I recommend you do instead is you actually click on the color palette and download it as an ASE file. The reason why is because last class we talked about swatches in Illustrator, and I showed you how you can load a certain pre-made set of swatches. Some are called nature, kids. Another option we have is to actually, once that we make the 5, in this case is, is 5, is a palette of 5. Once you make that, if you hit download ASE, and I'm going to say save file, then I'll show you how you can load it in Illustrator. That is pretty cool. So another way to get colors is by basically going around. Oh, this one is a Greek person that made it. That's pretty cool. Is going into these palettes and basically choose which one you like. Like I also like this with the tender blue. Now pay attention to the fact that you can hit next and next and next, and you'll have plenty of these. That is pretty awesome. Now, if you want to find the colors you saved, you can simply go. Oh, I'm going to actually get this one too. I'm going to get a lot of one with skin tones because in a minute I'll show you how you can create an illustration with shadows, and I'm going to use a face. So it's nice to have darker skin tones and lighter skin tone for the shadow and the light, right? So how do I find all my colors? I'm going to go under my libraries right here. And as you can see, if you go, there are 2 libraries. One that is custom for me, called Enrica 1. And then there is a general, more like default given library. These are generally more, oh, actually this one is Zago Palette. Zago is my son, is a name that we invented. So it's definitely my creations. So these are palettes that I created. But another thing you can do is you can go back to the Adobe Color and you can click on Extract Theme, as you can see right here. And here it'll tell you, drag and drop an image, and I will extract some colors for you. So I'm going to go look for an image. I think I prepared one for you guys so that we don't have to look too far. right there. It's just something I, to be honest, grabbed from online really quick. And now you can see that what color did for me, it went in there and grabbed different colors. And you might say, you know what, instead of the green, I like the orange that is down here. And maybe you kind of love this one and you can save it. I already saved it, so I'm going to leave it alone. But you can load any image in here and it will create a color combination. So now we downloaded that ASC file, and I'm actually, there's one here, I know for sure. I'm going to go grab another one. I need to go and download. Do you remember I had one that had a lot of skin tones? I want to load that one because I want to do a demo on that. So I'm going to grab these two also from the downloads so that I can basically load all of these into Illustrator. All right. Any question about color? I'm actually going to leave color right now. Explore more. Like, what does it mean extract gradient? It's going to create a gradient palette out of this that goes from one to the other. It's really, really strange. It's a new one. So you can, or you go back to the color wheel. You can go in trends and see what trends is. So I'm encouraging you to explore more, but I give you options. You know, oh wow, that's pretty interesting. Trends actually also is new. I haven't played with it yet. Just I give you enough option that you can create a color palette at the moment. Now you can create it in color, but how do you load it in Illustrator? So what you need to do is we're going to create a new file really quick. And you remember that I taught you last time. Did I say yes? Sorry, but it's funny, but Zoom cuts out a bunch of my interface, and I don't really see what's going on. Yeah, it's doing it. So do you remember last time I showed you that if you had, for example, you wanted to give a color to this, you could go under your swatches. I mean, you could obviously pick a color right here and say, oh, you know, I'm going to give it a pinkish color. And you went into your swatches and you could have even saved that pink color by dragging it. But I also told you, you can just go under the options, under the open swatch library and choose like neutral or whatever you want. Now notice though, another option we have right here is other library. And if I go in other library, you'll find my, for example, desktop where I have those ASE colors. These are all the ASE colors. So I think, let's try this one. I'm looking for the pink one. Oh, there it is. This one is a little bit pink. Let's get another one too. But the bottom line is, and this one might actually just do it. The bottom line is all you have to do is click on the options under Open Swatch Library and Other Library. And then you can load whatever you downloaded from color. That is kind of cool. And I don't remember which one. Maybe it was, no, this was red. And this was Thumbelina. So I don't know. Maybe the pink one was this. Sorry, let me stick with this since I have two pinks in there. So how do I create an effect in which I have a face, for example? I'm going to actually remove the stroke right now. I have a face and I have the neck right underneath. So I'm going to grab another shape, like, you know, and I'm not doing a masterpiece here. It's just for the purpose of the demo. And I'm going to create this rectangle. I'm going to actually round the corner even. So what I want to do here is I want, you know, this, oops, sorry, to be a slightly different color, or actually maybe the opposite. This one should be lighter. Sorry, I keep putting by accident the stroke. And this one should be a little bit darker. Or actually, this one would be fine lighter. But let's do that one piece is going to be darker. That is the shadow. How do I do that? So you can, first of all, I generally have a really meticulous layer stack. So I generally say, okay, the head is on the top. So I'm going to make another layer and I'm going to move that to the top. The neck is right at the bottom. And I'm going to put the shadow in between. So I'm going to create a new layer right in there. And I'm going to copy actually this shape by doing click and drag with the Alt or the Option. Oops. Obviously, I did not hold the Alt long enough. Sorry. I'm going to make this one smaller. Doesn't have to be that big. And I'm going to put it here. And I'm going to put it in the middle. And I'm going to make it darker. There we are. I mean, it's too dark, to be honest. So how can I change that? Look, is a little bit too dark. One way you can change it is by going under the opacity right here. And you can say, you know what, I'm going to actually make it 80% because right now is a little bit too strong and 80% is still strong. So I'm going to go like 70% and see if that does it. But as you can see right now, you have a color. And by the way, this is shown in the exercise 4 video. So the exercise 4 video, there is that effect in which we do a shadow underneath the chin of the character. So that's one way to create a shadow when you're dealing with the avatar one, with a more abstract representation. Now, how do you do the shadow when you're actually dealing with a more realistic? You want a more realistic shadow. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to grab, again, I'm going to click and drag and hold Alt or Option, and I'm going to actually make a copy of it. I'm going to actually, let me do the same thing. I'm going to show you, if I have two colors, and actually I'm going to put two completely different colors so you see what it really does. So you have two completely different colors. You need to make a transition, you know, like a gradient between the two that then will help you become the shadow in a realistic environment. So this is a more realistic shadow. So you need to select both of them holding the Shift key, and you need to go under Object, Blend. Now, if you go under Blend Option, you'll see that one of your options is Smooth Color. That's what you want when you want to do a very good transition between two colors, right? So I'm going to say Cancel because that's what I want. And I'll show you the other options in a minute. And then I'm going to go back into Blend and I'm going to say Make. Oops, there it is. Sorry, my computer is really slow. It has to do with the internet. Sorry. Oh, no, you know what happened? I actually did not realize that one of the two had a stroke. Ha, I knew something funky was happening. All right, let's do it again. It's easier because if you don't have a stroke. If you have the stroke gets in the way. You'll see what I mean. Right now, I'm going to make it, and it looks beautifully, a beautiful transition. Obviously, if you have the stroke, you're going to have this extra one, you know, line around one of the shapes. It gets kind of in the way. So this is how you would do whenever you're dealing with a more kind of like illustration-like. You want to use something like that. If you're dealing with a more like abstract way of doing shadows and colors, you want to deal with something more like that. One last thing I want to tell you is if you go into the color palette in Illustrator, I want to show you the concept of hue, saturation, and brightness. So you see that HSB, by the way, stands for hue, saturation, brightness. Now the hue is the color you pick. So it could be that, or it could be, you say, I want a green color. The saturation is how much of that color is present. There's 92% green in there. I can see that. And the brightness is how bright is that green. Now you can see that if I go up, that 71% is going to be higher. If I go down, it's going to be lower because there's less or more light into this green, right? If I go up here, there's a lot of brightness, so it's 88. But if I go down here, there's a lot less. Another way to depict color besides hue, saturation. So hue is which color you pick. Saturation is how much color, how much of that color is present. If you, for example, take a certain color, like bright red, but then you go and desaturate it, means you take that saturation slider and you plug in 0% in here, you'll see that it turns into gray. Do you see that? Because saturation means how much of that color is present. So in the minute in which I plug in 0 saturation, my color goes away. My hue goes away. Yes, I always say color and hue are the same, and in a way they are. I'm sure someone would argue against it, but I always think of hue as the specific color I pick. If it's green, if it's blue, if it's whatever. The saturation is how much of that color is present. Like if I go and I hit 10%, now you'll see that we're starting to have a little bit more green. We're moving toward the green. And then obviously brightness is how bright it is. You know, if I say it's 90% bright, now it's moving way up toward the brighter side of the spectrum. So you see that, right? Any question on that? So when in the avatar you're asked to use only 5 hues, means you have to use 5 colors, right? It's kind of what we're trying to do. Now we are seeing that in kind of a flexible way. That means Let me make it easier on you, because I think this assignment should be fun, right? We did say that it should be just fun. So this, let me actually go in, actually no, let me go in Explore. It might make it easier for you. So if I go in Explore, and I get even a palette that has, you know, few colors like this one obviously is based on purple and blues. But let me go find a palette that has really a lot of different colors. Okay, these. So you can decide that you want 5 colors like this or 5 colors like this. I mean, some of you might tell me, look, if I look at this, it's very likely that these two are the same color with just different saturation, and the same for this. But I'm not going to argue about that. It means I'm not going to tell you, oh, no, 5, you have to have 5 hues. What it means is have 5 colors, that 5 like this is fine. It means you cannot use more than 5 colors. In this combination, there are really 3 colors. The orange, this one is kind of like also in the spectrum of the orange, but you can define it also an off-white and more like the green version, right? So here there is less than 5 hues, I believe. My point is, if you go on color and define 5 of these swatches, that will be okay in your avatar, just to make it clear. Any questions on that? All right, one last thing I want to tell you is the idea of RGB and CMYK. And I know you read about that at the very beginning of the class. In probably the very first week, there was a link on it. But I want to show you how it really matters here. So if you remember from that link, what is the maximum amount of each of this red, green, and blue you can have in a file? Does anybody remember what's the maximum value I can plug in here? No, that's okay. 255. So the red goes from 0 to 255. The green goes from 0 to 255, and the black goes from 0 to 255. That means, sorry, blue. I apologize. I don't know why I said black. That means, sorry, let me go back into this because I messed up my color. Anyway, that means I was in the pink and I wanted to stay in the pink. That means that in here, you can, if you plug in, 250 in here, obviously it's going to be more red, right? Now, what happens if I plug in 255? That is the maximum. And in here, I put 0 and 0. What do you get? Maximum red, at the purest red you can get, right? Do you see that? That the choice, that little loop that you generally see when you pick a color, if this is 255, 0 and 0, that little loop thing, that little picker, color picker, is all the way here. Obviously, I can do the same with green. If I want a pure green, I rarely use these colors at this level, at this power, because look how this green is like, but you get the picture, right? That if you want red, green, and blue combined are the basic colors that we use to generate every color that we need. Now, they don't get everything though. If you remember, part of those links in week first were about spot colors versus process colors. So red, green, and blue, and cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, that are actually the colors that used for printing mainly. If you open a printer, you'll see that it has those 4 cartridges in it. If you open a computer screen and take it apart, you'll see that it has red, green, and blue, a light that kind of get, projected and mixed together. So if you think of these colors, you have to think of what we call process colors, because those are the colors that are in the process of any digital imaging device. But there will be times in which no matter how much you try to mix these or these, you will not be able to achieve certain colors. And those are the spot colors, or also called Pantone colors, because Pantone is the company that leads the making of these. What does that mean? It means that if you use these Pantones, if you want to print your business card, you have to have someone in the print shop go and find an extra cartridge to plug into the printer that is that specific Pantone color. And that means it will cost you extra money. Now, I want to point out to you that if you go in the swatches, oops, sorry, let me see. Oh, right here, sorry. And you go into the Right here it talks about spot colors, allows you to do spot colors, sorry. But if you go in here, somewhere you have Pantones, even color books right here. These all these Pantones, like CMYA coded, uncoded, these, there are like booklets and booklets full of colors. And these are like one kind. I mean, there are like, look how many colors you got in here. And I'm not even showing them all. As you can see, it's a lot of colors, but if you use these Pantone colors, the only downside is you're going to end up having to pay a little bit more. So just educate your client if they ask you for Pantone, so they know what's up, what's going on. So what I wanted to show you today was how you can you make colors through that beautiful app that is called color.adobe.com. And even derive it from an image. I also wanted to show you how you go in Illustrator and make kind of an illustration that is very abstract and has even these shadows and highlights are in a way quite, stark, or how you can make transitions that are much, much smoother. Be aware that in Canvas, under exercises 4, one of the exercises allows you to practice this blend option. One last thing I want to show you about that blend option is that if you go under blend options, this is the tool is called blends. We chose smooth color, but you can also choose specified step. So you can say, I want only 5 of these shapes, or you can also choose specified distance. I just give you the example of the specified steps. For example, you can say, wow, here it has 87 in May. Let's say actually I want 10. I'm going to hit preview, and you can see that now we start seeing it's not as smooth. If I say I want 5, oops, you can see we have even less. So these blends can be used for many different things. And in Canvas, you have an exercise that shows you something very different than this on how to use blends. So it's nice because then you get to see, different ways of using things. One last thing I want to show you is very quick. Some other students, believe it or not, have already done a few sketches, and they told me, what if I want to bring them into Illustrator and start kind of mock them up in Illustrator? How do I make these 3 by 3 inches squares really quickly? And the instructions on Canvas tells you to create a grid 2 by 3 in which you have these 3 inches squares, so you end up with 6 squares. How do I do that? So I showed very quickly how you can. I'm going to switch the stroke and the fill because the inside should be empty because this is where you actually go in and trace your sketches. You can go in the square, click on here, and specify that you want 3 inches, the rectangle width and height, obviously, as well. And you say, okay. And then you can basically go in and click and drag and hold Alt and Shift or Option and Shift. And then move them a little bit. And do the same thing, right? Click and drag, Alt and Shift. And click and drag, Alt and Shift. We need to move them all up a little bit, but there it is, how you do it. So that's one quick way to bring in, make a grid and bring in, if you wanted to, let's say you already had some sketches and you said, hey, look, I kind of like these 6 sketches. I'm going to try to mock them up really quickly with basic shapes in Illustrator to see how they turned out. Now, one last thing is if you want to be precise in Illustrator, you can do that too. Means if you need to place them in a specific spot, or you want to actually, let me delete this. Let's say you did not have that. You did not think about that rectangle tool right away to do the 3 inches. You could do Command R that pulls out these rulers. And if you right mouse click or control click on the rulers, you can choose inches. And then if you look, there's a little crosshair right here. If you want to specify that you want this to be the 0, you want to go in and click and release it right there. So now I have 0 and 0. So when I click and drag to pull out a slide, I know that's 3 inches because this is 2 and this is 4. I could zoom in and show you as well. But you click and drag, and now you have 3 inches. So now you can basically go in with the rectangle tool and click and drag, and you say, cool, now I got a perfect 3 inches square. And if you want to get rid of your guides, you do command semicolon, and it makes them disappear. If you want them back, command semicolon, makes them appear. If you say, no, I don't want the guides and I don't want the ruler, control R makes them, or command in Mac makes them go away, and command R makes them come back. So these are a few little quick tricks that I thought I would share with you for anyone that, you know, might be there doing sketches and start thinking, you know, I like these sketches, but I know in the digital world they're so different. I'm going to bring them into Illustrator and mock them up. And remember what you learned for project 1. Do you remember how there was a video on how to start project 1 in which you brought in, you placed an image, and last time we talked about how you can do file place, and you can place it as a template or a link or leave everything alone so it's going to be embedded. Remember, you can place an image. Remember how in that project 1 exercise there was a video that showed you how you can create a square and do a clipping mask and then trace the drawing. So that process you did for project 1 stand just the same here. So I'm going to stop the video because that's all I wanted to show you. And the recording, I'm going to stop it and then ask for who has questions, okay?